Friday, everyone. It's November 14th, 2025. We got a great show for you planned today. In about 10 minutes or less, author, mentor, and teacher advocate Nancy Dibble is going to be coming on the show. We're going to talk about her book, Wait, Don't Quit. So if you're a teacher ready to, run for the hills, don't do it. Don't do it. And so what I'm going to do is bring her on in a few minutes. So let me talk about a few things here. First, I'm going to give everybody out there a 40-day challenge, right? There's 48 days left in 2025 if you count today. So I'm going to challenge everybody out there to a 40-day workout, 15 minutes a day. That means you could take off every Sunday. We're going to start today. You could take off Christmas or Thanksgiving. Pick one. That's going to give you 40 days. And if you work out 15 minutes for 40 days, that's going to be 10 hours. So if you haven't worked out at all this year, go ahead and do it. Get your workout in. You know what I like to say. So, hey, kudos to the government. We're back on track after 43 days off. Well, sort of. I call that the trickle effect, right? Workers are going to kind of trickle back to work. Economy is going to kind of trickle back to where it was. Got to dust the cobwebs off. Get back to work, everybody. Looking forward to it. Speaking of trickle, what about ripple? The opposite of trickle, the ripple effect. Give a shout out to Ed Winslow. You guys saw that episode 202. We talked with Ed, CEO, founder of proofstacking.ai. His theory with the mayor of New York, Mamdani. He talked about the ripple effect of socialism. Well, he called it communism. I think it's already happening, guys. Seattle, check it out, right? We got a socialist, Kate Wilson, self-described socialist, now the mayor of Seattle. I lived in Seattle, and we're going to talk with Nancy. She's up at, I think she's up in Washington as well, so we're going to be talking about that. So I looked this up. What's the definition of a socialist, right? A person who supports a political and economic system where society as a whole, rather than private companies, owns or controls the means of production and distribution of goods and services. Well, you're talking to a businessman here, Wharton School of Business. I went to Kellogg MBA. So what does that mean, society? That means the government. Ouch. We let the government take over the production of and distribution of goods and services. I don't know about that, but I'm a capitalist myself. But this 43-day shutdown, we are the most divided government that I've ever seen in my lifetime, 62 and a half years. And I would say since the American Revolution. I want to give a shout out to, speaking of the American Revolution, I was a great, great fan of that period, George Washington. The new film by Ken Burns. It's a 6-part, 12-hour series, which starts this Sunday, called American Revolution. So it's on PBS. Check it out. I'm going to be watching that because I want to see all about what it was like. I mean, they talk about how they fought really hand-to-hand combat. Bayonets was all the thing there. But speaking of congrats, let me give a shout out to two MVPs. Shohei Ohtani, you guys know him from the Los Angeles Dodgers. He got his 4th MVP, the National League. Aaron Judge got his 3rd MVP, American League. 2 of the greatest players probably in our lifetime. So kudos to Shohei and Aaron Judge. Way to go. And how about this? Congrats to Kim Kardashian. I don't know Kim, but I do know this. Her company Skims. It's a women's underwear, clothing, and shapewear company. 6 years after the inception, they're going to do $1 billion in net sales. Kudos, Kim. The company's valued at over $5 billion. It's the most valuable celebrity-backed brand in the world. Way to go. Way to go. And speaking of congrats, let me give it congrats. I watched this volleyball game last night. The Iowa Hawkeyes came back to beat Northwestern Wildcats. Went to Northwestern, but Northwestern was up 2-1, and they ended up losing 3-2 in 5 sets. But I do want to congrats Aya El Nadi. She had 20 kills. She led the game in kills for Northwestern and everybody. And who we got? Miss Paris, she had 19 kills. So you got 2 great players on Northwestern. You guys going to come back. But tonight's got a big game going. I'm going to be watching Indiana. Number 18 ranked Indiana Cougars are going to play the Oregon Ducks. Well, what do you think? Cougars versus Ducks. Shooting for Indiana tonight. And Sunday's got a big game. Can't wait for that. Nebraska, number one's playing USC. I know USC well. Talk about USC in my book. They're ranked number 17. They play at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. So be looking forward to a couple games. Speaking of good news, well, maybe bad news, the stock market, right? Crypto, stock market, they took a beating yesterday, right? Bitcoin went down below 95,000. You guys know I'm a big crypto fan. Doge below 15 cents, but don't despair. All right. They will come back. And I learned this from a couple of guys. Give a shout out to Scott Jenkins and Wade Howard back in my 1985 Goldman Sachs days. They said to me, hey, kid, nothing goes straight up when it comes to the stock market. And speaking of which, Tesla went down below, I think it was 380 overnight, but it's a long-term play, guys. So hang in there. If you're not a trader, hang in there. Don't despair. Tesla's off 20% from its high of 48, but not worried. You got to hang in there. It's going to take a little while. And what am I got going? In addition to those games this weekend, I'll be watching 2 movies. Well, maybe 1 out of 2 movies. Christie, I want to go see that with Sydney Sweeney and Ben Foster. And The Running Man, you see that with Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, and Michael Cera. Big fan of Michael. But check it out. On Rotten Tomatoes, they each got a score of about 65%. So they got kind of beat up a little bit in the reviews. But let me tell you something. I watched this movie, Anyone But You, with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. I really, really like that movie. I think I talked about that movie in an episode. That got a score of 53%. So don't worry about Rotten Tomatoes scores, guys. So, yeah, go check it out. Anyone But You is a 2023 movie. Really like that. So Christie and The Running Man, they're on my list for today. And, on that note, let's see, what time is it? I told Nancy to kind of tip to come on at 11 o'clock, but let me tell you who she is before she comes on here. Nancy Dibble, teacher advocate, but we talked about this a little bit. She taught science for 27 years at low-income public schools. She's passionate about education and supporting teachers. You guys know I'm passionate about education, no doubt, with this book, Come Up With Solutions. She has a BA in life sciences, and she's a mentor for 8 years. MS in psychology, emphasis on the learning process. And she also taught the basics of the brain. I want to ask her about that. So her first book, Wait, Don't Quit. It's all about true stories. That every chapter is a true story, uplifting, inspiring for supporting and encouraging overworked teachers. We all know about that because teachers do need help. And she has this website, which I have up on my other computer here, mentorteachingonline.com. It's really cool. She's got a blog, talks about her books. She's got 2 more books coming out. And she's a curriculum writer. I'm going to ask her about that because I believe we need to change the curriculum. You guys know that. And she was on the design team for innovative project-based learning. It's called Center for Advanced Research and Technologies, CART. So there you go. And Nancy's from Puget Sound, Washington. Talk about that because I did spend some time in Seattle. And I do know she's got 3 sons here and 4 grandchildren. So we're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to talk about breeding horses. And here she is right now. Nancy, welcome. Thanks for coming on Tola Talks.
Welcome. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, yeah, sure. So let's jump in. I just talked a little bit about your background. Taught for 27 years, low-income public schools. Is that up in the Puget Sound area, or where did you teach?
No, this was down in the Central Valley, San Joaquin Valley of California.
Okay.
Fresno Unified School District.
Fresno.
So we moved here 4.5 years ago. Quite a bit different up here than
very
downtown.
Different.
Yes.
I got a good buddy from Fresno. I don't know Fresno, but I know the Puget Sound. Beautiful up there.
Completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Being would you
down
say
in
that
Fresno, hot. And all of my teaching was in poverty areas, so I really don't know what it's like to teach in an affluent area.
Right. Well, it must be much different. I only taught, as you know, I substitute taught for 5 years in inner city markets, and I would say poverty stricken without a doubt, low income markets. but as a substitute, you experience everything so differently, right? You don't have a relationship with the students. I mean, I think it's more challenging to be a substitute than a teacher.
I would
But let me see
agree.
your thoughts.
I would totally agree with you because I have done both. Before I went into teaching, I wanted to make sure. So I worked as a substitute,
Hmm.
and you're right. They don't know you. You don't really know them.
Right.
And then even after I was a experienced teacher, I'd frequently cover other people's classes. That was a little different because the kids know you on campus, um, but it's not the same as having your own kids and getting that relationship
Right.
established. Yeah.
Right. And starting off, I mean, what I always wished is it's funny, a bunch of kids along the way, they would say to me, Mister, why don't you be our teacher? Be our teacher. Like, and I would say, I'm not sure if I have the temperament for it because I couldn't handle, I'll be honest, there was so much disrespect and so much defiance in what I experienced that they just were mean, they were mean out of the gate. And I read some of your blogs about students who skip class, and
Mhm.
as a substitute, we don't know anybody. So when you're taking roll, we don't even know who. So they'll like kind of lie to you, and they'll, a kid that's not in your class is in your class, and you say Jose something, and they say it's it's difficult.
So I would empower my subs when I had to be somewhere. And the only time my students could get points for just paying attention and participating was when there was a substitute.
Hmm.
And so my subs felt like they had a little bit of something.
Right.
And then I ended up having the same subs wanting to come back to my classroom. And sometimes when kids were low on points, they'd go, hey, could you go somewhere? Because they liked that opportunity. But you're right, subs don't have a lot of power.
Right.
And so they can feel like kids can take advantage of them pretty quickly if they're
So when
not
you
set
say
up right.
points, let's talk about that because do you had
Okay.
like a point system? I mean, most subs teachers just don't even leave you. I'll be honest, more than about 80% never left work or anything. You just had a right,
I'm very particular, so I left very detailed lesson plans for my subs. I'm
okay.
literally, you could walk in my class and look at my big black front teacher table, and you'd see number one, do this, number two, three, four, because the
Mm,
last thing a sub needs is to not understand the lesson plan. They already have a group of kids they don't know, or if it's high school, of course, throughout the day, class after class of kids they don't know. I'd leave them a seating chart that's on my computer
mm.
so they could look and
We
take
get
roll and know
wow.
who's who. And the kids don't want to sit in the wrong place because then they're going to get marked absent, right?
Right. Right.
And like I'm trying to empower that sub to feel like, okay, I've got this. So what ended up happening is I'd have lists of specific subs that wanted my class.
Right.
And then it was better because the kids actually got to know those.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, there was an opportunity for long-term sub, right? In Los Angeles, it was 30 days. In New Jersey, it was 40 days. So when you got to sub a class for that long, I mean, you definitely got to know the kids. You got a
Yes.
chance to build your own rapport with them. They were hard to come by, but when you did get that opportunity, but it was very rare that that I can get into a teacher's computer. You just said that. Now I subbed throughout the COVID era, but um, giving them access to your computer and seating charts. And that was rare. I'll be honest, what I've experienced, that was rare. And you're right. You're empowering the sub. And were you, let me ask you this, were you particular with, so I knew this, when I walked into a classroom and the teacher's desk was just like a mess and it was chaotic, I would get a pit in my stomach. I'd be like, oh, because I knew that class 9 out of 10 times is trouble versus a teacher that everything in order. I was like, oh, there's order. Desks were in line. What do you think?
My classroom was very organized
Mm,
and clean.
right,
Um, I mean, not sterile
right.
because we're going to have a good time. But when I was working on my choosing a master's thesis
Hmm.
um, in psychology, when I realized I've got to study more about the brain because I did not get this information in my teacher credential classes, one of the things I learned is that 95% of your best teachers, most effective teachers, have a very neat and organized classroom. And then when people come in a disorganized place, they feel agitated, the whole
Mm,
house feels more chaotic.
mm.
I did know one teacher that was really good, and his room was a little bit of a train wreck, but he was such a good teacher that kind of worked through it.
Right, right. That's rare. Let's talk about that, the brain, because I saw that. You studied in psychology, right? And then it says you taught the basics of the brain. So what exactly is that, basics of the brain?
So what I did is I realized after years of going, okay, why do I have some kids that are getting A's and B's and feeling good about themselves? And what do I do to help these kids that are getting D's and F's?
Mm,
So it all really started with, I interviewed them separately. So I
mm,
sat down with my students that did really well and said, how do you study? What is it you're doing? And then I sat down with the kids that had D's and F's and how are you studying and what are you doing? And then I started putting this together to go, okay, the kids who are doing really well, they don't know they're doing it, but they're actually doing what the brain needs to get some information. And the kids who are struggling, they're not. Like they'd say, oh, I read over my notes. And I go,
mm.
we only retain a small amount of what we read unless we're doing something with the reading.
Right.
So if you just tell them that, they're like, so I can hear that. But what if they actually understood what their brain's doing?
Mm,
So I started with every single time we studied the brain, I had them do a hands-on fun brain activity. So it
hmm.
wasn't just, hey, let's going to start talking about the brain. And then once they've done that, say a brain puzzle, and I'd stop and show them what was going on in their brain in order
Mm,
to do.
mm,
And the basic neurotransmission, I drew, and I had them draw neuron number one and how that neuron connects to neuron number two. I had them
mm,
draw axon, dendrites, axon terminals, and how it's an electrochemical message.
mm,
And they were intrigued. They were really
mm.
interested.
Right.
Um, and I said, look, in order to even make a connection in that synaptic gap, you have to focus on it long enough. And if you don't, it's like a touch and go airplane. Practice
Right.
landing, you touch and you keep going. And you could hear kids already starting to go, oh,
Uh,
I didn't give my brain a chance. I said, absolutely right.
mm,
So the more I realized they were eating this stuff up like brain candy, I started integrating it into my chemistry curriculum so that I didn't want to do so much brain that I got behind. And what
right.
happened, which totally surprised me, is I ended up going forward, meaning I got further, deeper through the content than I ever expected because the kids were going, oh, I get what I need to do. Like I taught them input, throughput, output. Are you familiar with that?
No.
So the basic idea of input is you have these six senses. Are we even getting it in?
Mm,
So I used the example of UC Berkeley's research on how to learn. And I told them about the elephant. If you're going, it was a great example. I got it at NSTA conference. If you're going to study elephants, don't start reading about elephants.
mm.
Bring in an elephant.
Bring it in. Right.
Smell the elephant, touch the elephant,
Right.
hear the elephant, all the senses. So I can't always bring in an elephant, but I tried,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
so the point is the last thing you do is read about it because now you're finally interested.
Mm,
And then it's how do you read about it? So I did more and more brain every year. And the more I taught them about the brain, the better they did on tests. I think one of my signal moments that felt so wonderful is a student came in and she goes, you know what? I feel smart in your class. I thought, yes,
yeah. Yeah.
because it's a fear of looking stupid. They come
Right.
in and they go, oh
Right.
my God, chemistry is going to be so hard.
Right.
And I tell them, you're all capable. You're 100% capable. You just have to give your brain a chance.
Right. Right. No, I experienced that, especially with the kindergarten. I remember they did a lot of testing in New Jersey. They test like 3 times a year, and it takes like a week, and they get so stressed out. And they say, "Well, mister, I'm stupid." I go, "You're not. No, you're not stupid. You didn't learn it yet, because they were so far behind in so many things, even math. I said, no, kids, it's got nothing to do with that. You just didn't learn it yet. Don't think that. And that was a challenge. So they didn't want to apply themselves because they felt that if they applied themselves and didn't do, well, whatever that meant, that
Then
they
it
were stupid.
confirms that they're stupid, right?
Right. So it was like tricky to get them even to sit there, and then they would not come. And I even said, why are we testing them 3 times a year? It's almost too traumatic. And these kids were behind because it would take them a week to prepare and then the testing, and they would shut the school pretty much. That was interesting to me. Again, I was an outsider, being a sub, but I love education. You see my background. I mean, I master's degree. So I love to learn. I'd go to the library at college. I'd study 8-10 hours a day. That was easy for me. So I would say to kids, you have to apply yourself. I said, if you want to be good at shooting a basketball, you have to shoot it like 10,000 times, right? So don't think just because you don't know it, because I would say, what do you guys know? I would be a substitute in a math class. I love teaching math because that was something I could kind of get
Good.
through quickly.
Oh, I forgot to finish input, throughput, output.
Yeah.
So I taught the students that if you don't get it in some form of multiple senses, like say, why do we like the smell of baking cookies? We have good memories with that. So somehow you have to take it in, whether you see it, hear it, touch it, hopefully as many as possible. But the throughput is the part a lot of people miss. And that's where you actually have to interact with the whatever it is.
Mm.
So let's say something harder for a lot of kids is balancing chemical equations.
Mm.
Well, you really need to work through doing something with it. Write them out yourself. Figure out whether you need to make index cards or however you need to practice. The throughput is when you're really making the synaptic connections going, oh, or if it's reading, instead of just reading, you read something, a paragraph, and make a little note on a Post-it and go, oh, okay, here's the main point. That's the throughput. Or
Right. Right.
if you're studying for a test, it could be I showed kids how to make their own quiz cards and quiz each other in partners.
Right.
That's
Right.
some throughput. And
Right.
then in output, gosh, it's one of the things I learned in my master's. Most teachers, I was guilty too, don't do enough of this recoil. Because I assumed wrongly that the way we put it in our brain is the same way we bring it back out. And
Right.
that's not right. It's
No.
actually the recall's different. So we actually literally have to practice recalling. So we quiz
Right.
ourselves, or since most people like to talk, I let them do a lot of
Right.
partner quizzing.
Right. Right.
And then they practice recall. And I get silly, like I'll model it for them.
Mm.
For example, I'd say, okay, I got the questions on one side of the paper, answers on the other. And if you ask your friend something like, what's an atom? And they go, you go, oh, too slow. An atom is. You got to be quick.
Right.
And they'll do it until you don't have to hesitate, because then you're test ready. Because I also taught them about test anxiety and like dealt if you
Right.
way don't care, you won't do well. And if you're super nervous, you won't do well. You're right in the middle.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
all. So I
Right.
showed them that. And then what happens over time is the kids start to come in the room and go, oh, I didn't do well on this test, and I know why.
Mm.
I didn't do throughput, I didn't do output. And I went, see, so that's what we're going to do. I have you retake. Go
Right.
do the throughput, go do your output. And when some other teachers will say, well, why do you let them retake the test? That's not a punishment.
Right. Right.
Did you learn it yet? And if you haven't learned it yet, I have different versions, and it's,
Right. Right.
you know.
So it's processing and absorbing is another 2 words that could kind of complement the throughput. It's absorption and the ability to kind of put that out there. Not just did I read it and learn it, because no, they got to throughput it.
I mean, somebody can read a book and you can ask them, what's your main takeaway? And they go, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's so true.
But if they really read it, and like I asked my nephew, he was valedictorian at his high school. I said, what'd you do? Oh, I read my notes. I go, no. How did you read them? And he had to stop and think. Well, every time I read a paragraph or something, I stop and I try to apply it to something. And an example in real life, I said, well, that's throughput now.
Mm.
You didn't just mindlessly read, you mindfully read.
Right. Right.
And that's why, it worked for you.
Right, right, absolutely. I was a kindergarten class, right? And they brought in a snake. And I remember it was a snake. And there were two animals. I think it was like a turtle and a snake because these kids, they knew what a snake was, but they'd ever saw a snake because in New Jersey, you're hopefully not seeing snakes. It was New Jersey and a turtle. And the kids wouldn't touch the snake. Maybe half the kids did because I was like, well, just feel what a snake, when they say scales, like what does that mean? And it felt, and then now compare the snake to the turtle, and then like they knocked on the shell. So it was like light bulbs are going off because again, if you've never seen, just looking at a snake in a video, it's not the same, right? So no doubt that type of learning, I mean, that was only one time out of the 5 years that I ever taught that there was some, in class demonstration. Although one time this guy he brought in a McDonald's, some like like a hamburger from McDonald's, and like celery, and he's like, now this could last for like 20 years, or it was funny because they were like, I'm like, I think they're a little too young for that. They were like little kids trying to.
But that's great to have before I taught chemistry and I taught integrated science, I had like a zoo in my classroom. I wrote mini grants for animal sites, 7 snakes, tarantula,
In your classroom.
yeah, a couple
Wow.
saltwater fish tanks. I didn't have any venomous snakes, but I
Oh,
had
right,
snakes.
right.
Goldfish that I used for experiments. No goldfish ever died from our experiments. I
Wow.
was very careful.
Wow.
Um, because again, it needs to be a living, breathing.
Right.
When you come in a classroom, in my opinion, it should be, wow, there's so much happening here. I want to come to class. And
Right.
another big thing for me is having a hook. And when I was a mentor at Fresno Pacific University at teaching science methods, I really tried hard to impress upon my students, don't just start teaching. You
Mm,
have to stimulate curiosity, in whatever way. It's an intriguing question, short video, a demonstration, but open the mind first, because
right.
if you don't open it first, of course
Right.
your kids are going to check out. And I don't have a problem with phones in the classroom. I know that's a big deal now, and I'll tell you why. I've told my students, one, their phones worked better for the internet than the computers we had. Weren't very good.
True.
And I didn't have kids abuse it. I just didn't. And I'd say, look, if you have to call mom and step out and call mom, I'm a mom, I get it.
Right.
But if you're on your phone doing something that isn't working for the class, well, then that's a problem.
Right.
But if you're using it in the right way, because they're like, we'll play Kahoot or we'll play some game that requires it, and our computers at that time weren't so great. The later
Sure.
ones we got were better, and then we didn't need the
Right.
phone so much. But to my point, if my classroom is less interesting than your phone, I feel like I need to do something different,
Right. Right.
right?
Absolutely. I had well, when I started teaching, they wouldn't allow phone. It was just, you can't use your phone, can't use your phone. And as a sub, to get a kid not to use their phone, it's amazing. I tell stories about it. One kid was slithering on the ground just to get unlock the phone. But I would say, after a couple years, I said, I get it. I would say, all right, listen up. I would hold up the phone. I said, this is not a phone. This is research. So when I say you could do research, you could use your phone, but I want you researching what we're talking about. That's
Exactly.
it. Just research it. And then I'm going to give you a little quiz. And then based on that, but it was like they loved it because I would say, but at least give me 20 minutes to talk about, because they were 80-minute classes. I don't know what yours were, but they have block classes in LA. 80 minutes is like a long time when you're a sub with nothing. It's like I would carry puzzles with me, and that's what I write about. Like, I was always prepared to, because they like doing puzzles and word game stuff. Because when they get bored, a few kids would do it, and then others would do it. But I would say it's research. I could just don't do it to play games, right? And back then, TikTok started to come around, which got a little tricky because then it's like, all right, you can't make a video of me. I said, because they would like make videos in class. They go up to the board, put it there. I turn my head and they're dancing. I'm like, what are you doing? I didn't even know what TikTok was when it
Yeah.
first came out. So of course they can, the older kids seem to stray more than the little kids, because the little kids, I would say, we're talking about rainbows. Now look it up. Look up the word rainbow on your phone. And they would say, oh, mister. And I'm like, good, because now they're, in their hands. So I hear what you're saying. Phones, there's the good news and the bad news with phones.
It can be abused for sure. And
Right.
then, of course, as long as students, like you said, know how you're going to let them use it, most of them don't want to abuse that privilege. It sounds like you'd be an amazing teacher. Why aren't you teaching?
Let me tell you, I love kindergarten. All right, that was like my favorite. So the biggest challenge I had was, and this is what I talk about. I think there should be in LA. You had up to 39 kids in a class. That's like a lot. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe when they were younger, they'd go to 24, 25 with the smaller ones. But I always believe there should be two teachers in the classroom, either the teacher with an assistant, a para teacher,
Hmm.
because when you're by yourself, at least as a sub, it's brutal. I mean, you try teaching in LA high school kids, 39 kids, it's impossible. One time, it's not no exaggeration, there was a team taught class. I had 70 kids. There was 35 and 35. And then the other guy says to me, hey, tell you what we'll do. You go outside. It was Jim. You go outside. I'll stay inside. I go, yeah, but it's a beautiful day. Who's going to stay inside? I had like 68 kids running crazy, and he's inside with two kids shooting baskets. I'm like, that's
No.
insane. That was the most stress. They were climbing the fences. These kids were all over the place. It was brutal. But so I learned, like, if I could teach with another person, yeah, I mean, I love teach. I had a great, when I got to teach, I taught biology. I see that you taught biology. And I taught biology in LA. It was a long-term class, and it was the very end of school. I was going to take them to the end, and I got to do their grades. And I had a couple students, like probably like 3 students in there that were going to college, that were great students. They could learn well, but the other 33 or 36 kids were like, they didn't want to learn. One kid raised his hand. I was teaching evolution, because I got to kind of teach the last few chapters, and he's like, Mister, I don't believe in that. I believe in God created, everybody. Why do I have to learn this? And I'm like, well, because it's going to make you more interesting. I don't come up with the curriculum, but just learning it, it's going to make you have another opinion. You don't have to believe it, but at least learn it. But it was tricky, because I didn't, I never really learned, like, like you said, you got to sort of bring more to the table than just the papers. But I think what I had a challenge with was that I got disrespected a lot. I mean, kids dropped the F-bomb for no reason, and I'm just like, I couldn't understand it. Like, I couldn't understand like why they just didn't want to show respect. But I learned. So I guess I had a not so great experience overall. 5 years experiencing substitute teaching was rough, and I didn't
And
want to go
substitute
back.
teaching is rough. I
It's
just think
rough.
you have, just listening to you, you have a lot of qualities that would make a great teacher, because I'm hearing what you did. It's different when it's your own kids. I mean, subbing
I
is
know.
hard.
No, I know. I know that. And I met a lot of great teachers. And I want to talk about your book in a second, because I did meet one teacher who, this was in New Jersey. She taught right next to me. And I would, again, what I would try to do is I would try to survive. Like, I really went into the classroom thinking, I just want to get out of here with no fights, no kids dropping the F bomb. I want to kind of go peacefully. I want to try to teach them something, even if it was a life lesson. Because I would deviate, there was like nothing for me to teach. So I would like teach them, hey, raise your hand if you know what interest means. Does anybody have a bank account? Nobody had a bank account. Imagine teaching seniors. Again, 36 kids. Nobody has a bank account. I go, do you know what it means? Like, you know what a credit card is? Yeah, the kid went, yeah, mister, you buy it. I'm like, yeah, but do you understand that you have to pay interest on that money? What's that? So I would like teach them that. And that's a lot of teachers would stand by my classroom and they're like, who's this guy? Like, is he because I would just teach them one little thing. If I could teach you one little thing, interest or what it means to have a bank account. But to me,
Well, you
I
were
did
teaching them
enjoy it.
something real. You were teaching, and the kids will find value in that.
Right. Oh, without a doubt. And that's, I had a few teachers at with this one school who would really just hire, like you said, that you would hire the sub. I had this one school where they would call me, and that's what it was. You wanted in LA, it was a little trickier because you had to answer the phone. It was like try to get hired. There's like too many, like LA, anybody could sub. You only have to sub 2 days a week. So every part-time actor in the world's a sub, right? So it's trickier getting those long-time subs, and they don't want to give you those because they have to pay you more. They pay $250 a day for long-term, and they pay $180 for a daily. So the school is thinking, why do I need a long-term sub? So it's unfortunate because we would develop the relationship, but it was cheaper to hire the daily sub, and there's a plethora of them. So in LA versus New Jersey, it was the opposite. Nobody wanted, they needed subs desperately. It's like nobody wanted to sub. It was harder, but no, I enjoyed it. But I think the reason I like kindergarten so much is those kids, they were excited. They were like a sponge. All they want to do is learn. And they're just open to it. Doesn't, and you had another teacher. So if I did, I'd go back and teach kindergarten without a doubt. I mean, even though high school, I would do well with these seniors, but yeah,
You just
it's
said
easy.
something that really resonates with me. Before I wrote the book I did, the book I wrote, I was going to do one called Killing Them Slowly, and I decided it was too negative. And what it was in my mind is kids do come to kindergarten so excited. Why can't they still be excited about learning by high school? And so I would share that with my students. And I said, look, I want you to be excited to come to my room. I want you to be excited to come to every class, quite frankly,
Right.
not just mine, because we should be excited about learning. It
Right.
should be fun. And so I listened to them. What stopped you?
Mm.
What crushed that happy, oh, what
Yeah.
stopped that? And so
Right.
I took that seriously as well. So I'll give you a quick example of some of the crazy things I did. When I was teaching middle school, I turned my entire classroom into a cell. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is I took clear plastic drop cloths, and the students and I, like a huge amount, taped
Mm.
them together,
Mm.
and then you make a tunnel over the plastic and tape it off and put fans on two sides, and it blows up.
Oh,
So
right,
it's
right,
getting into a big pillow of
right.
air, and their job was to make half of the cell a plant cell and half an animal cell. And I
Mm.
put them in teams. I will say it was chaotic because you got
Mm.
the sound of the fans, and kids are so excited, and they're
Right,
going in and
right.
out from their cell carts. And then on open house night, the idea was to give people tours of a cell.
Right,
Well, was it harder for me as a teacher to manage that? Yes.
right,
Was it rewarding? Yes. And
right,
it's that I want the kids to want to come. I want to be there,
right,
right?
right. Sure.
So
It's
to
fulfilling.
back to kindergarten, why isn't it as exciting? We
Right,
did toad races for learning measurement,
right, right,
and I no toads were harmed.
right, right.
But I mean, I would find ways to take what they need to learn and what could make it applicable, fun, interesting, and make them want to get that kindergarten joy still.
Right, right. That's the word joy. I wish. But speaking of which, let's jump into your book. Okay. It's Wait, Don't Quit. And I'll give you one little story. Again, this was in New Jersey. I was teaching math next door, got to know the teacher because we would kind of watch each other's. If I had to go to the bathroom, she would watch my class. And, it was because you couldn't really leave, right? And get someone. So she says to me, she never took off, right? And can you sub my class tomorrow? I'm like, sure. She goes, well, you have to read to them. I'm like, now this was like 10th grade. I'm like, what do you mean I have to read to them? She said, well, let me tell you. AP English. She was like the best teacher in the school. She said, let me tell you something. She said, 10 years ago, my students are reading Shakespeare. She goes, now I can't get them to read the comics. She goes, so I have to literally sit there, read out loud, and then read a chapter and then discuss it and then have them write like one or couple, bullet points and then go to the next chapter. They won't even take books home. Back then they didn't buy books. When I taught, they just didn't buy any books. And she goes, so we got to be friendly, and she said, I'm quitting. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm going to go work for the Department of Education. She goes, I can't. She goes, 25 year, I had a 25-year plan. She goes, this is my 10th year. I can't do it anymore. She goes, it's not fulfilling. And I said, no, I get it. And you know what we were reading, which I even wrote about it in my book, To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, let me tell you, that book, yeah, it was applicable in 1960, right? But reading that book out loud, I mean, she's a great writer, but the language is, she drops the N word a lot in that book. And it was just hard to read. So I would read, I would stop and say, listen, kids, let me tell you what the world was like in 1960. It was very different, because they were like, Mister, why is it, I'm like, so I felt like I had to. So I said to her, I did when I came back, The Power of One by Bryce Courtenay, to me is one of the best books ever written, about a little boy who's apartheid. And I said, why don't we read that book versus this book? What is with this book? Of course, I read the book a few times, but anyway, that was my, but I felt she was a great teacher, but she said, it's not working anymore for me. So that was sad. So she was quitting. Let's talk about your book, Wait, Don't Quit. So how do you encourage someone like her 10 years in to not quit?
I was just going to say the editor for my book taught English and quit at 10 years. And she said, after walking through the whole book with me, she really appreciate her. She's like, if I'd have known what you're saying in this book, I wouldn't have quit. And I said, really? Which part? And she said, teaching them how their brain works so that they actually feel better about learning. I want to know how to do that. So she and some other people have said, could I please make book 2? What exactly did you do? So I have already started book 2, and it's going to take me a little longer because I'm backing up every chapter with neuroscience. But she said, I didn't know that I needed to teach them how the brain works. And that would have helped me. So whether it's To Kill a Mockingbird or whichever the book is, part of it is, I remember saying to my students, I said, how many of you want to get smarter and how many want to get dumber? And so, of course, everybody wanted to get smarter. And I drew a line down the middle of the board, and I showed them a recipe for being dumber and a recipe for being smarter. And I said, what's really exciting is in neuroscience, we used to think your IQ was static. And we learned, no, you can actually improve it. And I remember one student looked at the board after I put down all the things to do to get dumber versus smarter. And they go, oh my God, I'm doing everything on the dumb side. I said, but see, you can change it.
Right.
You can absolutely change it. So part of this, and where I'm going with this related to the English teacher, is students want to learn real stuff. Just like you're saying, To Kill a Mockingbird was harder for them to relate to at that moment.
Right.
What's real stuff every day?
Right.
How do I make my brain better? And I haven't met a person yet that doesn't want to make their brain better.
Right.
Then it would have applied to the English, and it makes teaching more exciting because people get turned on to, I'm not just coming here to learn whether it's Shakespeare, I'm learning to get my brain better.
Right. I like that.
It's really fun to study the brain. And what doesn't make any sense to me is how teaching credentialed classes could never study the brain. I mean, they don't.
Right.
They never really study how the brain works.
Right.
Basic anatomy and physiology of what's happening, which helps the high school students. I think the middle school students could have done it, but I wasn't doing it yet then.
Right.
So she said, had I already read this, I wouldn't have quit. And so that's exciting to me. So the reason I wrote, you want motivation behind the book?
Right.
Seeing some really good potential teachers quit. And I'm like, this is hurting the kids.
Sure.
Seeing how, there's times I wanted to quit, honestly. I wanted to quit, not because of the kids. Never has done. They're amazing. It's because partly the systemic structure.
Hmm.
You cannot move up as a teacher unless you go into admin.
Right. Right.
You can't be like as in government. You can go GS1, 2, all the way up to 20. You're a teacher.
Right.
You're going to be a teacher 30 years later, and it doesn't change your title. There's
Right.
no room for growth unless you exit. And I kept seeing some of the best potential teachers,
Right.
understandably, move on. And
Right.
they'd also move on because of that English teacher you just told me about. So, what's left if you
Hmm.
don't have that systemic change is how much desperately the kids need you, how
Right.
important you are. And that's
Right.
what got me. And the first inkling for me was when I was teaching child cello and I was leaving to go teach in Fresno. And this child cello unified wouldn't release me right away.
Hmm.
And Fresno Unified wanted me. I felt wanted, but it was a little bit of a battle, so I couldn't leave until like after 6 weeks into the school year. And I didn't think I'd even made a dent. And one of the kids gave me a going away party. One of the little notes said, "You never know when you're going to be somebody's hero, somebody like me." And it just
Right.
got to me. I thought, God, what did I do? And all I can think of is noticing people.
Right.
I mean, everybody wants to be seen.
Right.
Um, and I think the impact teachers make that was way bigger than I ever knew, which is why I wanted to write the book. So please, if you can possibly stay, please don't quit, because teachers are so valuable and they
Oh,
don't know how much the kids need them.
right.
And it's not the cocktail party valuable where people are going to go, "Oh, wow, you're a teacher." No,
Right. Right.
it's the kids. And like one of them at that school that I noticed, I was head down in class and I was wondering why he was doing this. And
Hmm.
so as I go around the room monitoring, I said, "You know, are you okay?" And he picked up his head and he had a big red handprint
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
severe.
Hmm.
And I said, "Are you okay?" And luckily he said, "No." I said, "What happened?" "My dad hit me."
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
right away called down to the really good counselor there. And he was removed, fortunately, from the house that day. But my point there is, I don't know how he made it to sixth period.
Right.
I
Right.
don't. And I don't, maybe he kept hiding his head from people. But those are the bigger impacts. But the impacts we make every day, and we don't even know because kids don't always tell you how important you
Right.
are.
Right.
And then the reason I wanted to do a story format is later when I was at Prison Unified, one of my student teachers was struggling with classroom management, and I told her a story, turning point for me. And I just told her the story of what happened in my
Hmm.
classroom in Sequoia Middle School. And she went, "Oh." She went and shared it with her teacher,
Right.
student teacher friends. She came back the next day and she said, "Hey, you know that story?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, that's the most help we've had
Right.
so far in our classes. Could you tell us more stories?"
Right.
And that put that in my mind. So I put
Hmm.
together how desperately the students need us, they really do,
Hmm.
combined with the student teachers need us because they need to hear these stories because we learn through stories, right?
Right. Right. Without a doubt. Speaking of teachers, right? So I remember now, I'm 62 years old. Mrs. Gray, sixth grade. There's some teachers you never forget. Mr. Cal Maley, his name was. He died at a young age. He was a calculus teacher, but he was just the best in high school. It made it, when teachers, let you connect with it and you go to another level, like you remember them the rest of your life. I mean, I remember my sixth grade teacher. I mean, it's like unbelievable. Man, I remember, I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Barrett. He was my swim coach. I mean, he coaches. Ken Ruba was my baseball coach. There's probably a handful of people I could say their names. I think back to those memories, but they went beyond. They taught you a life lesson, but they taught you to believe in yourself somehow or another. They taught you, which I liked with these children, especially I was teaching in East LA, and these kids, I'll give you one story. You could see downtown LA. It was 5 miles as the crow flies. And I would take a bus to that school because it dropped me off right in front of the school rather than parking like on the street. So I'm like, I took a bus. But in LA, school kids take the same bus. Like they take buses for free. So there's no school buses. They take regular buses. So I would go early just so I wasn't on the bus with all these kids. And then I would wait to leave later because it's like you're on a bus with a million kids. But this was the school where I would say, so is anybody seniors? We're talking seniors, East LA. So raise your hand if you've ever been downtown. 2 kids out of like 36. I'm like, so none of you, I said, you could see it. You could see downtown. They're like, why, mister? Why are we going to go downtown? They don't leave, in Trenton, New Jersey, they don't leave a 4 square block area. They don't really go outside that market. So that leads me to my next question, because you are a curriculum creator, right? And I believe, just again, as a sub, most of what I taught, I was teaching a kid one time the periodic table, and he's standing there looking at it, and I'm looking over his shoulder, and I'm like thinking to myself, first of all, I don't remember anything about the periodic table, except I said, hey, kid, I said, listen, here's the good news. I go, the only thing you're going to have to remember about that is that water's H2O. The rest, because, he's trying to like learn it. I'm like, what? And I go to the teacher, I'm like, why is this? She's like, that's the curriculum. I don't make the curriculum. I'm like, but that makes no sense. This kid's not going to be a doctor. I don't even know. Maybe irons, Fe. I can't remember any other thing about that chart. And I was like, got straight A's in high school. I graduated #2 in my high school. I got 1 B in typing, but every other class. So I'm like thinking, I don't understand. Why are we teaching, even in biology, we're teaching things that, Linneman's theory. And I'm like, I can't remember that, with rocks and all this stuff. And I'm like, why can't we teach them nowadays? It's the phone, Instagram. There's so many things you could teach them, entrepreneurial. So I come up with that in my book. I said, these are a million things that I would teach instead. Like my father was a barber, 65 years as a barber. We should teach kids how to be a barber. You know what they make? You can make a living because they're not going to leave their neighborhood. They're not going to go. They didn't go downtown. So how do we change that? Now, again, I didn't go to school to be a teacher, but what is up with the curriculum? I think you got to change the curriculum, or it's like a one size fits all, and that shouldn't be. Maybe a kid at Princeton is going to learn that, but why?
I think it's a good question. So I'm going to answer it in a couple parts. When I first started teaching and saw what the curriculum was, I understood I needed to teach the standards, but I didn't have to teach it with the method, which these incredibly boring textbooks I never used.
Right.
I think the only thing I used them for was the periodic table in the back. And then I only used the periodic table to show them how to use it. It's a tool.
Right.
Don't memorize anything there, just learn how it works. And then there are things that are useful in there.
Right.
I didn't like, I did always teach the standards, but I taught it, and it was more work for me, especially the first couple of years. I made my own lesson plans or found ones that I liked, and then I'd adapt them for myself. That a teacher can do. But what I was surprised by with the first mentees, they thought they were going to come in to start teaching and somebody was going to hand them really ready to go curriculum. That is not ever in my experience.
Right.
So new teachers need to know you are going to be a curriculum generator, but the good part about it is you can do what you're saying. And I did this all the time. How can I take something that sounds not interesting, like a periodic table, and make it interesting and applicable?
Right.
It does take, like new teachers, I'm like, hang in there. It takes you a couple years to wrap your brain around all that. But once you do, the kids see that you're trying really hard to find real life applications.
Right.
And you are figuring it out yourself. It's not handed to you. And it won't be, but not everybody's willing to put in that time and effort. So if they stick with something that is canned, kids know it, it's not going to go as well.
Right. Right.
And I think a good model for that would be if we had teachers that are the ones who are comfortable creating curriculum, and then within the system, have them teach new teachers the first couple of years on site, like not, and really teach them, here's how you do this to make the curriculum that doesn't look very interesting, applicable and better and a higher level.
Hmm.
So, and then also who writes the standards? Oh my gosh, they must not be teachers.
Right,
It
right,
must not be teachers. So for example, biology,
right.
last time I looked at the biology standards, there was no more plants. You don't do much with plants. The kids don't learn that. So what I did when I taught bio, I made sure I did all the standards. There are a lot of stuff's DNA now, which is important, but I still taught plants. And I mean, I came in, I brought all these flowers.
Hmm.
I dumped flowers on their desks and did flower dissections, and they were fascinated. They
Hmm.
loved it.
Hmm.
But now not everybody's going to get that. I mean, when I told the kids plants have sex, they went, "Oh, no, they don't." I go, "They do." Um, then they're interested. Can you find the male and female parts on here? So I took standards that I needed to teach, applied them to real life, did it my own way, and then added the stuff I thought was missing.
Right.
I think it must not be teachers writing standards.
Right. It has to be an interpretive approach where you're interpreting the standards, and then because I just, maybe it's just teachers that lost the zest for teaching. That just, study this, we're going to do a quiz. It's like, oof, with no real. I did see a lot of that. I saw it a lot when teachers take off. Like when I would be at a school subbing the same, I would sub the Spanish class. I don't even speak Spanish. They put me in this, I'm like, what is that? Like that teacher takes off all the time. She just shouldn't be. If you're not coming to work and you're taking off 20, 30 days a year out of 180, I'm like, well, why don't they just replace her? Well, she's been there for 30.
Yeah. And if you're
It's
making it so the kids, it's not prison.
right.
School isn't, and it's compulsory. I understand
Right.
it's compulsory in this country, but it's not prison. It should be somewhere they want to come
Right.
and not be outdated. Let's have our up-to-date technology and
Right.
teachers that are excited to teach. Um, I did have certain things that would that would happen that, say, a new admin wanted or a district wanted. And if I knew it was bad for kids, I just didn't do it.
Right. Right.
And some of my teacher colleagues would go, "Oh, you're not doing that?" I go, "No."
Right.
Why not? Because it's not good for kids. Well,
Right.
what if somebody finds out? They will find out. I don't care. I
Right.
care that kids come first.
Right. Kids first, without a doubt. So, well, you have two more books coming out. I know you said you had the one follow up and then another. But let me say this, everybody. As you know, I'm great on research, but I'm on your site, mentorteacheronline.com. I love your blog. The
Thank you.
students who skip class, you got the most important thing. I'm just reading off hooking your students. I like that. Motivating the unmotivated. That's so true. Um, should I ask my teacher for help? Do teachers choose what they teach? So there's a lot of great stuff on your site. So anyone who's a teacher out there, I believe in always, being yourself, right? Bringing yourself to the table, but you could always use help. And what I believe is learn from the best. So you put a lot of great content out there. So aside
Thank
from
you.
your book, Wait, Don't Quit, you have two more coming out, and I'm going to congratulate you on those. I mean, it's always great to write a book, isn't it?
You know, it's satisfying because then it keeps going past you,
Right, right.
and so I'm excited to read yours.
Yeah, I'm excited for you as well. Well, I'm gonna say thank you so much, Nancy. It's been really fun. I mean, I wanted to ask you about breed. Last thing I want to do is breeding horses because I did mention in my email to Nancy. I said I got it. My good buddy of mine. Give a shout out to Jimmy V. He's a thoroughbred. He did farm management, then he got into thoroughbreds, and I know it's a little different. But you breed horses in your spare time, so what's all that about? What do you think?
Well, I've ridden horses since I was 7 years old.
Oh
And
wow.
I was introduced to Lusitanos about 2005 and fell in love with him. It's the horse of Portugal. It's the ranch
Oh,
horse in Portugal that I'm not into bullfighting because I think it's cool to the bull, but the horse is amazing.
right.
And once I rode my first Lusitano, I thought it was that individual. And then I rode another one and another one and another one. I went, ooh, these are amazing. It's like
Wow.
a border collie, but in a horse skin. Like they just want to work with you. They just want, they've been bred for a couple thousand years to be like your buddy horse. They're
Wow.
less likely, I mean, any horse can buck, but they're less likely to buck or bolt because they've been bred to be with you. They're
Okay.
amazing. I just fell in love with them.
Now, who do you breed for? I mean, these are private owners. Like I have a friend
Yes,
that owns a horse, but
yes.
private owners, not for like show or anything. They're not show horses, or
Well, they can be. I
they
mean,
can be.
yes, they absolutely can be.
Okay.
But it's more bred for being true to the breed type, which for me first is here, meaning
Right.
the Portuguese have bred that horse to be a horse that they could put their grandchild on
Oh, I see.
and the horse is fine, or they could step on and go really do something, and that horse knows the difference. It's a
Right.
family horse in Portugal.
I see. Is
They're
is
wonderful.
it big? Is it a smaller horse or normal
Medium,
size? Medium.
medium-sized horse,
Okay.
as long as some American breeders don't get into trying to turn it into a big, tall, warm blood. It's not. Just let
Hmm.
it be medium-sized breed standard that the Portuguese want with this is number one.
Right.
That's
Right. Now, do you have a farm? Do you live on a farm, or do you have a?
We had 25 acres in California. We're reducing it now. We just have a little over 10 acres up here.
Wow.
And shrinking down the breeding program now at this point in our lives, but it was
Right.
fun.
Simplifying,
Yes,
shrinking,
yes,
but well, I think I'm learning that each day, each year that passes, I want to keep it more simple, right?
me
And
too.
right, because what's important, and as I said to a friend of mine recently, I said, each day is incrementally larger for the rest of my life. It's taking a bigger portion of the rest of my life.
Right.
So you got to do what's important, but at the same point, what you love. And I see the writing and the horses, and Puget Sound is beautiful up there, huh?
It's lovely. I love it
It's
so much. I'm not a fan of hot weather, so
right.
yeah.
You get a lot of rain. I mean, I lived in Seattle for a bit, but it's still similar weather.
We're in our, it is a little bit drier. We're in the rain shadow a little bit
Okay. Right.
than Seattle, but
Right.
like we're in November, so it's raining today. It's the wettest month of the year, so.
Right.
But that's how we get the green and the fabulous hikes, and
Right. It's
it's
beautiful.
wonderful.
Well,
Yeah,
beauty is the key, and that's what life's about. Well, thanks for coming on. I mean, this is good. I mean, hey, anybody watching, go get the book for sure. If you're a teacher, I look at it like as a resource. You should have your little bag of tricks. I think my book is a resource, especially for a
yeah.
sub. Yeah, just take a resource. It's quick read. I know each story is based on truth, and if you're a teacher out there, don't get discouraged. Right, just hang in
We
there.
need
There's a
to.
reason you chose that. Yeah.
And if I could leave with this parting thought to all those new teachers or teachers considering quitting, I appreciate you. You are so important. If you are so valuable, I will say every day I taught, I never questioned that I was making a difference. And I don't know how many jobs you can. I know there's some other careers you can do that, but in teaching,
Right.
you have that amazing opportunity to make a positive impact every day.
Right. Without
Every
a
day.
doubt. And they have big
Yeah.
hearts. All teachers, we get the big heart. Tell you, I met a lot of great teachers without a doubt. And again, I keep going back to kindergarten, but I met one of the best kindergarten teachers I ever. Everybody makes it. Every teacher makes a difference, and there's always going to be that one child that will remember you forever, right?
Yep.
Teachers, they just stick with you. So keep up the good work. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. I'm glad you came for
Thank
this
you.
nice talk. Good.
I
Congrats
enjoyed
on the
it.
book. Yeah, we'll be in touch again. And again, everyone, go get that book. Wait, don't quit. Nancy Dibble. Thanks, Nancy. I'm going to have
Thank
you
you.
check out, and then I'll
Okay.
finish up.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. How about that? So, for anybody who's a teacher out there, and I will say this because there are some days when I was a substitute. You know, you're like a bookmark. I say you're the junkyard dog running around. You can bark, can't bite. But it's challenging to build a relationship with students. But sometimes I did. Like sometimes, and you'll read if you guys get the sub, you'll read. If I know there's a lot of students out there that are going to say, you know, they remember me because I tried to make a difference. And every time I went to work, no matter what it was, where it was, I tried to make a difference, try to impact the students so that it could change their life somehow. So for teachers out there, kudos. I mean, you're doing tremendous work. You should be getting paid more without a doubt. Teachers should make more money and should be respected a lot more. So kudos and thanks to Nancy Dibble for coming on. I just thought this would be a cool little show to understand, you know, the mindset of an experienced teacher who's, like I said, learned from the best. So if you could learn from Nancy, go check out her site, mentorteacheronline.com. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but I'm looking at it right now. Author, science educator, curriculum writer, and mentor. So go find your mentor. Hey, guys, really enjoyed it as usual. Get your workout in, 40-day test, or shall I say challenge. Get your 10 hours in, and we're going to see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Peace.